Hello, my name is Simon Doherty. The former Royal Naval College and now University of Greenwich Maritime campus is a complex of buildings symmetrically arranged alongside the River Thames, representing one of the finest collection of buildings in England, displaying immense architectural interest and national importance. This project will involve the renovation and preservation of one of its historical structures. With the university located over 3 operational sites, this can present a logistical challenge for stakeholders. The plan is to consolidate and relocate the heart of this institution back to the Maritime campus and all its royal heritage. However, with more than 10,000 students already on site and resources already stretched, a comprehensive study will be required to assess the rationale whilst making the best use of the existing facilities. The Dreadnought building is a Grade 2 listed structure. The former library now provides teaching and staff facilities and is home to the university's IT centre. Built circa 1780, the building is a 3-storey structure with vaulted basement of solid wall construction with stone dressings. Closed in 1986, the building was refurbished in the late 1990s with the addition of a glass and steel structure to the central courtyard. The building's design consists of 2 large wings to the east and west, connected by 2 smaller wings to the north and south. The layout is a mixture of cellular and open space, with access to the upper storeys and basement provided by 2 principal stairs located centrally within the main wings. The proposed plan will focus on the building's restoration and potential use, and is crucial to its long-term future and university's development plan. In addressing this challenge, an assessment of all options will help determine a project's currency and chance of success. However, this initial appraisal will not only test the viability of the business case and project objectives, but will also assist in defining the project scope. Early diagnosis will also help identify risk, and when seeking to carry out a project of this nature, then the following key criteria will need to be considered. Technical. And is the capability there from both a human resource perspective and a process? Economic. Is it cost effective, and will it provide value for money? Legal. What are the constraints and any ramifications? Operational. Will it work, and does it fulfil the organisation's requirements? And finally, schedule. And how much time have we really got? In dealing with each of these constituent parts, each one will be carefully tested to assess their merit or potential weakness to enable a judgment to be made on a project's viability and potential for execution. Each one will need to be scrutinised, and it may be that some can be determined quicker than others, but only when all of these elements have been assessed will it provide an overall view on a project's feasibility. The technical aspect of this appraisal will cover a variety of matters, and one of the first things to consider is the Dreadnought building is a live building and currently in use. This will make any more refurbishment a little more difficult, but not impossible, and with a little reorganisation and reallocation of resources, should not pose too great a technical challenge to the university's admin team. The building is also home to the university's communication and control network, and any works to adapt or convert this building will need to consider how services can be maintained or relocated throughout the entirety of the project. And in confronting this challenge, you may find that far from being a problem, this issue becomes more of a project objective to find a more permanent solution and new home for this essential service. One potential client and future tenant is the Faculty of Education and Health, and their impending arrival presents yet another challenge. The department's technical requirements and operational needs are fairly specific, with science laboratories and clinical environments a fundamental part of the department's day-to-day routine, and as such raises the question, does this building lend itself to an easy conversion? The building will need to be assessed for its suitability for adaptation, and in carrying out these works, it may require the complete closure of the building. But this would bring additional pressure to already hard-pressed resources. Alternatively, the programme could be managed, allowing partial use whilst works are ongoing. But this approach could lead to delay in completion and also have a cost implication. Cost will always be an integral part to any project's viability and capability to deliver. But with the university liable for the full repair and insuring of the building, the long-term maintenance and operational costs will need to be assessed to see whether these costs are sustainable for a building of this age and constructed almost 300 years ago. That may require some modern methods applied to an historic fabric. The cost of refurbishment can also have a greater significance due to the uncertainty as to how a patient, or building in this case, will respond. As the difficulty in dealing with any existing structure is there, will always be some unknowns with the building's pathology, as well as some of the documented issues like asbestos. And these unknowns may prove too big an obstacle from both a technical or financial perspective. The building's current condition will also need to be considered, and whilst there is some evidence of building decay, this is not unusual for a property of this age and type of construction. And in broad terms, the building appears of sound construction due to its construction methods, but like every building, it will need to be routinely maintained to preserve its structural integrity. And how much will this cost will need to be factored into any calculation. But whilst all these factors will need to be considered, it may be that the logistics and relocation of these services is simply unrealistic, and that the only solution is the sensitive refurbishment of this building. And this proposal reflects so much of what the university is trying to achieve, and is not just about the future use or loss of this building if judged unsustainable, but represents the university's determination to maintain and enhance this historic structure. Most development will require some form of legal agreement, and whether that's the local planning authority or building regulation approval, we'll touch on that shortly. But from an operational and organisational aspect, it needs to work. And can it be sustained once complete? And any redevelopment of this building must provide a solution to the plans proposed, while satisfying the business objectives to budget and in a timely manner. And time, as ever, will be a key factor to any project. And if you don't have enough of it, it simply limits and reduces your chance of success. Accurate forecasting is therefore crucial to a project's viability that will require an understanding of the client's needs and available resources. And once established, the adoption of a schedule of services together with a risk management process will help mitigate any delay. We've mentioned that building works of a certain scope will require some form of planning consent designed to control and protect the environment from overdevelopment and urban sprawl. Accompanying this will be a set of guidelines that will ensure that certain changes and modifications comply with certain standards and building regulations. But this project will require consent and a range of approvals from a variety of organisations. To protect and maintain this heritage asset, a buffer zone exists that provides an additional layer to protect and safeguard against any neglect or uninvited damage. This preserves the Dreadnought building and its family as part of this nation's rich tapestry, bestowing an additional obligation to maintain these properties and their exceptional appeal now and for future generations. Located in this zone, in a conservation area and World Heritage Site, will render some special attention, and this is foremost recognised by a management plan devised to maintain these important assets. And it is this and the remnants of the former Tudor Palace located just beneath the Dreadnought building that will require an articulate approach and statutory consultation with a variety of stakeholders prior to the commencement of any works. The list is extensive, but the obvious ones are the local planning authority, who will play a huge role in any plans or consultation on the refurbishment of this building. English Heritage, the government's official advisor and leading authority on the historic environment. The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organisation and sponsor of World Heritage Sites and their management plan. And you, the public, will make use of this building, take care of it and hand it down for future generations. There are other consultees, such as the Ancient Monuments Society, the Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings, and several others, who would hold an interest, and a more practical one would be the London Fire and Emergency and Planning Authority, and a statutory consultee. But the local planning authority will be the principal stakeholder regarding these plans and key to the project's success. Most proposals will typically involve a planning application, although dependent on the intended works, it may be planning permission and listed building consent will be needed, and sometimes only one or neither is required. Any covenants preventing development or specific use, together with easements and certain rights, will also need to be considered. But this information should be easily obtained from the relevant plans. The Royal Borough of Greenwich is the local planning authority, LPA, responsible for the borough's spatial strategy and planning policy. This will include issues to do with transport, residential and commercial property, conservation and listed buildings, and in the case of the Dreadnought building, any proposed works will require only engagement with the LPA and the conservation officer. Their role in determining any plans will be to secure the preservation of this heritage asset, whilst enhancing the character and appearance of the conservation area. And like any planning authority, this is achieved through a combination of national legislation and local development plan. But due to the significance of this site, there will also be reference to local plans, as already mentioned, and a policy that is conservation specific. In most cases, a heritage statement will also assist in determining the impact of the proposal, and the National Planning Policy Framework, NPPF, sets this out, requiring an applicant to describe the significance of any heritage assets affected, including any contribution made by their setting. The level of detail should be proportionate to the asset's importance and no more than is sufficient to understand the potential impact of the proposal on their significance. In terms of legislation and plans relevant to this project, we should look at the following. Planning for listed buildings and conservation areas, Act 1990. The Historic Buildings and Monuments Act 1953. The Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Areas Act 1979. The LPA's and Royal Borough of Greenwich's Core Strategy 2014, and the London Borough of Greenwich Unitary Development Plan 2006. The very nature of this structure and its unique setting will require a more measured approach that recognises the building's history, its location and set of challenges involved. And it is these set of circumstances, together with the physical and legal constraints, that will inevitably lead to an increase in intensity of both stakeholder involvement and participation. However, with any refurbishment project, there will always be an element of the unknown. And regardless of what knowledge you may have of a building's fabric and general construction, when dealing with a site of limited scope, you may find that those values are submerged and rationale ignored, but should not lose sight of the fundamental principles integral to a successful project. And finally, we've all heard the saying, it's all in the preparation. And nowhere more than construction is this a truer phrase. As whilst there are certain tasks in life that you may consider undertaking without any prior knowledge or understanding, construction is certainly not one of them. As the key to any successful construction project will ultimately lie in the preparation and detailed research of the business plan.